Good evening. I'd like to call the Monday, September 15th regular meeting of the Granville Exempted Village School District to order. Ms. Deeds, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I would be proud to.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to welcome everyone online and in person to tonight's meeting. Will the treasurer please take the roll?
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
Ms. Shaw? Here. Ms. Deeds? Here. Mr. Khan?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Deeds? Aye. Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye. District recognitions and highlights.
All right, good evening, everyone. Tonight we are recognizing the Jody Van Tyne Award winners. Jody Van Tyne was a second grade teacher at Granville Elementary School from 1977 until the time of her death in March of 1985. During her brief career, Jody was admired, respected, and loved by the many students whose lives she touched as a teacher, their parents, and the teacher and staff whom she worked with. The Jody Van Tyne Outstanding Educator Award was established in 2006 by Jody's father, David Mielek, who set up a special fund with the Granville Education Foundation. The Jody Van Tyne Outstanding Educator Award commemorates her exceptional life and career by recognizing teachers who embrace the qualities such as a sense of caring for others, an ability to understand and respond to individual needs of students, and a commitment to education. Moreover, nominees are teachers who have made a significant and distinguished contribution towards the growth and education of their students in the Granville School District. As in the past, selecting one has been very difficult, and as all the outstanding nominees this year were recognized and congratulated by Granville Education Foundation. However, the committee ultimately selected two very deserving winners this year for the awards. Here are a few excerpts from the nominations submitted for the teachers. Dallas Wildman has been a breath of fresh air for my daughter. She is caring, loving, listens to the parents and the children's needs, and she is sympathetic. Mrs. Wildman has been an absolute joy to have as a teacher this year. She is passionate about each student's well-being and checks in regularly to make sure that the students and the parents are all on the same page. She is kind and calm, gives students second chances, and sees all students in as good deep down. She gets to know each student on a personal basis and faces each day with a great attitude. She has control, but allows her students room for growth. She shows the students how to build confidence from inside. Her care and dedication go way beyond the classroom. She embodies the very spirit of Mrs. Jody Van Tyne and is adored by everyone in the community. There could be no more deserving recipient for this award than Dallas Wildman. So Dallas, I'll actually bring you up after I do the next one, and then we'll do a joint picture, okay? But let's give her a round of applause. The other award winner is Mrs. Parsley. Mrs. Parsley is an incredible asset to our entire district. Her presence is truly felt throughout the building, and the difference she makes is both visible and lasting. Every other week, Mrs. Parsley works with my kindergarten students on their gross motor skills, and it always is the highlight of their day. The kids constantly ask when she would be coming again. When they return from their time with her, they're full of energy and joy, each one beaming with a smile. Mrs. Parsley introduced the Best Buddies program to our school district, a program dedicated to ending the social, economic, and physical isolation of children with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Her leadership in this initiative reflects her unwavering commitment to the inclusion and advocacy of these students. Because of her, students feel seen, supported, and included in many ways that matter deeply. Mrs. Parsley goes far beyond her role as an educator. She recently started the chapter of Best Buddies in Granville Middle School and High School, and Best Buddies awarded our chapter as the Best Buddies Ohio Rookie Chapter of the Year for 24-25. In all aspects of her work, she has built a loving, creative, and safe atmosphere for all of her students. Her impact will be felt for many more years to come. Congratulations, Tara.
I'll be the road, or the thorn between two roads. Yes, so, congratulations.
Yeah.
Okay. Are you guys done?
Yes.
1, 2, 3. Thank you.
And, you know, it's always important to see how people react when they get awards. And Tara and Dallas are so well deserving, and the way that they both reacted to being nominated by either their peers or the students that they serve, I know that this was a tremendous honor for both of them. So thank you very much. We know that you spend a lot of time in and out of your classrooms and in the district. So thank you very much. And now you can go. I didn't get a chance to say it.
You get gifts, you need to stay.
Oh, no, listening. Oh, I was like, oh, there's gifts.
The players.
Oh, no, yeah.
Thank you so much.
Congratulations.
All right. Now, staff reports. I'd like to invite Mr. Lofton up, Director of Operations, to go through some of the work that was done this summer to maintain our important physical assets.
Good evening. Just kind of want to walk through what a busy summer we had. Keep in mind that when we start these projects, we have 2 months to get all this stuff done. And the good part is I can share with you is, hang on, almost ready to share with you. We completed 43 projects in that 2 months. And just over $2.2 million is what we invested in the district, in our buildings, in our grounds, being able to keep things up to where they need to be. So quite the investment that we've made, in our buildings. Additionally, the athletic boosters invested $100,000 for scoreboards in the main gym, middle school gym, and out at the soccer field. Band boosters invested just under $27,000 for the band tower that's out there that was just completed recently. And then intermediate school PTO invested $30,000 for the new playground surface, which we have pictures of that we'll show you later on if you haven't been out there. Just to give you an overview of the list, we completed 11 flooring projects, 8 asphalt and concrete projects, 5 HVAC projects, along with the playground surface replacement, LED lighting at the stadium, and then getting the village water out to GIS, which we will likely turn on Monday. We have a few tests to do, but we should be turning that on Monday. And then the scoreboard replacement, as we talked about with the athletic boosters. Additionally, with our operations staff, this staff, I'm happy to say we've been together for 2 years. They're working well together. They really have taken pride in our schools and making sure that anything that pops up, they complete it as quickly as possible and get things done so that our staff and our students keep having the best at their fingertips. So last year we completed 2,271 work orders. And if you divide that out amongst our staff, we did 8.73 work orders each work day that we had for the 260 days of the year. So really busting them out and getting them done and making sure that they're a priority to get them done and get them done quickly and within time. So I'll just kind of, I have some pictures to show you of the projects that we were able to complete. Here's some flooring projects that we've done. And as I shared last year, you know, we've gone to this lighter look. It really brightens up, you know, the classrooms. And everything that I've been involved in and have read about, you know, the more natural light, the more light we have in the classroom, the better it is for the students. Additionally, another classroom, and then what we try to do is in the spaces that are not classrooms, we kind of try to go with a different look to kind of set it apart from the classrooms. So this is the project center. The one on the right is the project center at the middle school, which we want to set off and do something a little bit different to give it a different look than the rest of the school. One of the most important projects we did was fixing the road that goes between the stadium and the high school, which, as most of you know, if you've driven it, you would always go to the right and go around the hole so you wouldn't lose your car or lose anybody, right? So we actually did all three of the basins that run up that road, just because we were starting to see some of the similar things as the one out towards the road, out towards Newburgh. So we just did all three of them at once. So this is a look during construction, and then this is after they were finished. Much better level and ready to drive over, and then this is the look afterwards. A much cleaner look and a better overall road going in and out of the school. So this picture here has to do with our HVAC. These are variable frequency drives. They don't look like much, but they really save us money and save us electricity. When a motor starts up, if you don't have the variable frequency on it, it just goes from 0 to 100 right now, which then causes demand to go up on your electric. The variable frequency drive starts it off at a slower speed, lets it work its way up to the 100%. So it saves you money on the front end, and then when it winds back down, it saves money on the back end. So it also helps with the life of the motors themselves. So it's important that we have these, and we had to replace 3 of them out at the intermediate school. These are the air handling units that is in the high school, just above choir, band, and those areas. They needed to be replaced. We're getting close to being done with the air handling units in our district, the HVAC units in our district. Now it's our responsibility to make sure we keep up on doing all the preventive maintenance work to make them last as long as possible. This is the area that most people don't get to see. This is up in a mezzanine that hopefully people aren't going up there. And then we have the lights. This was really interesting. As you know, the picture on the left is taking down the old lights, which were very inadequate. And then the picture on the right was putting up the new lights. Everything was done on the ground, which was really interesting to me. It's the first time I had seen them put up this type of Musco. I had been involved in other Musco lighting, but they would have to aim them from after they were in place. These are all calculations that are done. They pop them in place and they're already aimed, and they put it up on the pole, and then they shoot a laser down to the center of the field, and it's ready to go. It was really, you know, for those that really like to look at the, you know, the construction, and, you know, it's one of those things that make you go, you know, I like how they figured that out. It was good. That's the geek in me, sorry. There you go. This was the first football game. For those that have been there, I think it is much better than what we previously had the last couple of years, so. Now, this was a project that I have never been involved in before, so it was very interesting to me. This was getting the water from in front of our stadium out to GIS. It was connecting the Granville water system, village water system, out to GIS. You know, some of the issues we were running into is the EPA standards were getting more demanding, and, you know, and it was taking a lot of time of our maintenance staff to go out and test the water and make sure they were documenting everything and staying within, you know, staying within the rules to make sure we're doing everything right for the water out there. So this, you know, watching the directional bore and stopping out and talking to the guys, it was just really, you know, interesting watching him put an 8-inch pipe, you know, 6, 7 feet in the ground, and at one point we were at 12 feet deep in the ground. It was just, you talk about guys that are there working hard every day. They were there working hard every day. So just to kind of give you an update on this, we flushed the system today. We're testing water, the water that comes out of it. Tomorrow and Wednesday, they send those off to the lab, and as soon as the lab gives us a thumbs up, we can switch over. So just a safety hurdles that we need to get through before we turn it on. A couple more pictures. The box to the right is where the meter will sit. To the west of that picture, so going up the road, is where GIS is. So the village water meter will sit in there, and that's how it will be billed based on our usage. But it's we've actually looked down in it. It's just nothing but pipes. But when they brought it out, I wasn't ready for it to be that large. It was a good size structure to be putting into the ground. So this is the playground out at GIS. We took up all of the crumbled rubber mulch, removed it. We had to come in and compact stone. It was basically like building the turf out at the stadium, right? You compact stone, you put a pad, and then you put the turf on top of it. But we added in, around the structures, you can see we added in pour-in-place rubber. And the reason we did it this way, in going to the turf, it's that if you try to do pour-in-place everywhere, it is just extremely expensive, right? So by putting in the turf, it cuts down the cost, but you still have the same safety factor. There's a 2-inch pad underneath the turf, so if you're out there and you're walking on it, it's very spongy, much more than if you were walking on the stadium turf. It's a total different feel. It has a spongier feel to it. So, and we don't have to mow it. We don't have to water it. There's a lot of good things that go forth for us, right? So the next picture I'll show you, because I've spent a lot of time out there watching this project. Occasionally we get some really good views out there too. So, sometimes it's better to be lucky, right? And as we move on to the scoreboards, these are the 2 scoreboards that are in the main gym right now that we've added. They're Daktronics, top of the line, they look great. I think we've only used them for volleyball so far, but as we get into the more winter seasons where basketball, you'll see a lot more of it. It looks great.
And Fred, would you like to read the bottom part of that?
I think the picture says 1,000
Okay.
words right there.
As a Rotarian,
I was gonna cut
I would
that
like
off.
to call attention to the fact that the Kiwanis once again step up.
I was going to have to correct Mr. Lofton when he said the boosters paid for all of them. The Kiwanis paid for the high school.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Sorry. Josh didn't put that in my notes.
Yes.
So, the arch is what we've, started putting up with the scoreboard. And I think it's a great look, to our district. Again, here is the middle school. The only bad thing is we couldn't put the arches on these because of some restrictions we had based on the height. But they still look great. Very nice score right there, 57-0. Not sure who we're playing. And then we have the soccer scoreboard that just went up recently. But good additions. I think the next thing you'll see is baseball and softball getting new scoreboards. And we'll be close to being finished at that time. So, the band tower. I took a before and an after. It is quite the structure. We are going to sell it on the backside for softball games as a luxury box. To try to get a few extra dollars back, just so you know. But it's quite the structure. Our band is phenomenal as it is. And if this helps make it even better, then the sky's the limit for us. Public service announcement that I was asked to add. There's going to be a ribbon cutting ceremony. Will take place at the band tower on Wednesday, October 1st, 7 p.m. Everybody is welcome to come and enjoy the festivities for the ribbon cutting ceremony. So, we also, we at GIS on their stage, the roof the paint on the roof was starting to come off and flake off. So we came in and we actually hand scraped all that paint off and then used an advanced direct to metal to make sure that we had good contact and we wouldn't run into the paint peeling off at a later date. So we should get a good 20, 30 years out of this paint job. We did go to black instead of, it was white. Theaters tend to like black more in the ceiling than the white. So we did make a change, but it came out wonderful. They did it in a week. It was one of those really good projects that you see beginning to end in a week. Those are nice things for us.
Including scraping it?
Yep. Yeah, they went to work. Just to kind of end what we're doing, it's not just the big items we do, we also do a handful of smaller things. We continue to add in, moving from drinking fountains to the bottle fillers, trying to give more options. And this one actually here is just outside the senior lounge. And then it's also the more, the smaller touches where, just updating our fire hydrants, painting them, painting the small things like that usually aren't noticed very often, but it's those little things we try to do to make sure we're making everything look great. To end my time, we have some future projects that are out there. These are not necessarily going to happen next year, but they're things that we're looking at and working on getting cost and based on budgeting. It's just having a good foundation of when we can do it and when it fits the right time to do it. So well, we got a couple more air handlers to replace, replacing windows and doors at GES, GIS, and GMS. We need to purchase another bus. Flooring, we're going to continue. We have 44 more rooms to do, and that's not including the corridors. We have 44 rooms that we still have to finish up with flooring before we can move into the corridors. And then also things like the baseball and softball fence replacement, just to update them and get them ready to go. So that's all I have. Are there any questions?
Thanks for all your team's hard work, we appreciate it.
They really enjoy coming in and getting things done and moving forward. We have a few that actually, one that works GES that will sit and eat lunch, in the cafeteria with the students. And he takes ownership of GES and making sure the kids are ready to go and have everything they need. So.
A lot of work, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate the report.
Yep.
It's also good to remind the community where their tax dollars are going. And every time you're investing back in your facilities, that's a great investment of taxpayer dollars. So I think it's important for people to see. Sometimes they don't notice it when they're walking around, or they would never see it because it's in a mezzanine.
Yep.
But again, and those are the really expensive ones. So it's good for people to see pictures of that if they're paying attention. So.
And we appreciate, the public giving us those tax dollars to keep our schools looking wonderful.
Thank you. All right, next I'm going to invite Mr. Bernath up to pass the baton on the 2025 local report card that came out today.
10 o'clock today, so this is fresh off the presses. We do have a little bit of insight as to what it's going to look like ahead of time, so really today is just for us a matter of validating all the data that we see was correct. Thankfully was, so no surprises, which is always a good thing. Just to kind of start off, there we go. The report card does look a little different this year because now there's 6 components. I know you remember from last year we talked about the one component that was just in the test phase. Everyone remembers that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good. And that's the college career, workforce, and military readiness. That's actually part of out of the report card now. So they've been telling us it's going to be part of the report card, and they follow through, and it is. So there are 6 components instead of 5 now. They're weighted a little bit differently. Achievement and progress are 25% of your overall report card score, and then the other 4 are 12.5%. That's how they get to the 100%. I'll talk in generalities, like we're a 5-star in this or a 4-star in that, but there are different levels within each of those as well. So you can be a 4-star, but really be a 4.25 star. And all that added together gets you your final ranking. So at the end of the day, I'll talk about each of these individual ratings, but we were a 5-star again overall, which is the highest rating you can have in the state. By preliminary calculations, again, this came out today, so if I'm wrong on this number, please don't hold it against me completely. There were 47 5-star districts in the state of Ohio. 2 years ago, there were 68. So it's becoming more difficult the more they add to this to become or keep that 5-star designation. So we'll jump into this a little bit and talk a little bit about each of the different areas. Overall, in 5-star, but we were 5-star in 3 areas and 4-star in 3. And we'll kind of go through each one in the order that they came out. So the first one is the one that we're probably most familiar with. This is performance index. And this is a calculation that's based on how your students did on the Ohio State tests in 3rd through 8th grade, plus the end of course exams they take in high school, which include algebra, geometry, biology, U.S. history, government, and English 2. Remember, they got rid of English 1 a couple years ago, so there's just one English test in the high school. And the better your students do on those particular tests, the more points you get. The more points you get, the higher your performance index. So there's different levels that students can score on state tests. The highest level is Advanced Plus. And those are students who scored advanced on the state test, but they're taking a test above their grade level. So for example, if we have an 8th grade student taking algebra and they score advanced, they actually get a little bonus because you're not supposed to take Algebra 1 according to the state until the 9th grade year, so they become Advanced Plus. And you get a little bonus, 0.1% for that, or 0.1 points for that particular test. The next level below that is Accomplished, then Proficient, then Basic, and then Limited. So for example, if everybody in the district, every student took every test and they all scored Proficient, our performance index score would be 100, exactly, because you get 1 point per test, and that equates to 100 PI's performance index. Likewise, if every student scored advanced on it, let's take Advanced Plus out of the equation. If every student scored advanced, you would score 120 on your performance index. Now, what the state does for this calculation has changed over the years. They take your performance index score and they divide it by the top 2% of the state, and you get a percentage of that. And if that percentage is above 90, then you get a 5-star rating out of it. So our performance index score was this number right here, 106.4. It was 105.8 last year, so that's a marked increase that we saw. And our percentage went from 96.6 to 96.9. So we went up. The maximum district performance index score is 109.8, so you take this divided by this, and that's how they come up with the 96.9. So we're a solid 5-star in achievement and performance. All the rest of this that you'll see on the report card, those are the old percentages of how many students were proficient or better in those particular subject areas, but it actually has no impact anymore. Before we met, 27 out of 28 indicators, and that percentage gave you a score. It's 100% this performance index score. How do students score on those Ohio State tests that they take? For 3rd graders twice, and everybody else once in the spring, at the end of the year. This chart right here just kind of shows our performance index over time. You see that our Advanced Plus scores are growing a little bit, our advanced scores are growing a little bit, and the red's shrinking and the blue is shrinking, and that's certainly the trend that you want to see as you go through time on that. But this is the highest PI score we've ever had, so in the modern era of the report card with the same metrics. So it's a great thing to celebrate. In progress, we got a 4-star. So what that means is our students made above expected growth. And the way they measure that is they take student scores on previous Ohio State tests and say, okay, how did those students do the next year? Where were they projected? And then how did those students score? And that's why you don't see 3rd grade on the progress, because there is no Ohio State test prior to 3rd grade. So for the 4th graders, for example, their 4th grade language arts and math projections are based on how they did in 3rd grade math and reading. Both of them contribute to those. There's all kinds of statistical metrics that I'm not going to be a part of, or maybe even completely understand how they got to it. But in its most simple form, how did this group of students do on the state test in 3rd grade, how they do in 4th grade, and then how they do in 5th grade compared to the rest of that pool that started back in 3rd grade. That's the most simplistic way to describe it. And now think about how many years of data we have with Ohio State tests. So they're really able to actually come very accurate. We give our teachers projection scores and projection updates at the start of the year, and they're very creepily, is that a word? Accurate. It's amazing how accurate some of those projections are. Our goal is we want students to maintain and be above, and that's where we were as a district. The different colors in here represent how different grade levels and subjects did on that particular test. The black score is the students made the most progress, and it's well beyond anything that's just statistical. This is a function of there were some really good things going on. Those students grew well above. The other end of the spectrum are the red and oranges, and in those particular grade levels, we didn't grow as much as expected. The thing about data when you get to progress on this is this ebbs and flows every year. You may have one grade level that's black one year, and next year they're orange. You're like, well, what does that mean? You have to look at it holistically and not take one-year snapshots. Plus, teachers also get value-added data, progress data for their individual classrooms. That's much more informational for them in terms of not just where they can improve, but more importantly, what they did well and what groups of students they interacted with really well.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
So you said something about the modern, the way the way we've been testing. How long has that been going on? Like how long have we been getting these report cards in this kind of manner?
2017, is that right, Jeff? That was the year after Park. Whenever the Park testing went away.
Are you talking about the 5-star rating?
Yes.
Or
Yes.
No. Yes, yeah.
The performance index calculation has been relatively consistent since 2017.
27?
Okay, the
It
state's.
was like a different number before that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Different way.
Yes, but the way they've done this has been pretty consistent. I mean, I confidently say between 2018 on, I'd have to go back and look at actually what year it switched over.
Do they give you information on actual, what parts of the test kids were doing well on, what parts of the tests, what questions they didn't do so well on, for the
Kind of.
teachers or two?
Kind of, it's not as detailed as I would like it to be, because they can't release all the questions, but they do release some of the questions, and then for each subject area, we get a report that says, here are the 5 questions your building did the best on, and here are the 5 questions that your building did maybe the most poorly on. And then each teacher then can break it down to that area. And what you're looking for, because as a teacher, you know all the standards that are out there. It's very rare that we look at it and say, oh my gosh, they missed every question on that particular standard. That literally has never happened.
Yeah.
So what you're looking for are trends. Is it, in the reading test, is it informational text that's giving our students more difficulty? Or is it vocabulary? Or is it just kind of all over the place? And then it's looking at do our assessments align with what assessments they're going to see here from a rigor perspective, would be the next piece of that. So there's more information than there used to be. I'd like to get more. I think teachers would like to do more, but what we had 5 to 6 years ago certainly is much better, because now we can get those tests from last year and just make some correlations. We're not going to make our assessments, just like the state test. That's not the purpose of learning. But you also want to make sure students are prepared for those assessments when they walk into them. And are you creating a rigorous environment for your students where they can be challenged and succeed at the same time? And that's threading a very difficult needle at times. So
Thanks.
There's a lot of lag in the data though, right? So it's really hard to use it for feedback like you sort of need in the classroom.
it's useless within the current year. It's more of a trend of what did I do well last year, and then I can build upon that going with my students next year.
But doesn't this show you, and I know we're 4 weeks in, or however, 3 weeks, doesn't this show you for English language arts, 4th, 5th, 6th, that the new curriculum, that teachers and students made that switch pretty well?
Yeah,
or
it didn't
no?
hurt, that's for sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
And that, anytime you're switching curriculum and making the shift that we did from a philosophical methods to philosophical methods that are far apart, but we were still using foundations before, so there wasn't as big of a shift there. And to have that kind of growth in English language arts was really, really good to see.
Kudos to the teachers, the instructional coach, you leading that.
It was the teachers and the instructional coach leading that. They did a great job with
I'm
that.
sure you did something.
Yeah, I bought the materials for them. Gap closing, so if we had an hour, I would take you through all of this. This is kind of if we don't know where to put it, we're going to put it here, except for the main premise of it, which is, are we closing the gap between the students that are performing high and the students that aren't performing as high? Are we catching kids up to grade level and beyond where they belong? And it really looks at your 2 different tests, reading and math only, so your ELA tests and your math tests, and also your subgroups. So your subgroups in a district, or anybody you have 20 or more students in one of the historically consistent subgroups that we've had, like students who are Caucasian is one group, all students is another group because we have more than 20 students in the district. Our Hispanic students are a subgroup, our ELL students are a subgroup, our special education students are a subgroup. We have 9 different subgroups. And so what they do is they create benchmarks based on previous performance of where those students need to score to get points in gap closing. So in the end, there's 63 points available, and you have to meet all these benchmarks. So from an achievement perspective, math and ELA, the orange dots represent where those goalposts are for us to meet them, and you can see we didn't really come close in any single area for not meeting them. We really did well in terms of an achievement perspective in language arts and math achievement across the board for all of our subgroups. When it gets to growth, what they expect you to do to get a point is have growth that's above, it needs to be black on that chart for that subgroup. So it can't just be above expected, it's got to be way above expected. It has to be 2.0 or above in their index is the easiest way to describe it. So that's this line here, and you see we didn't meet that in all the area with all the subgroups in language arts, nor in math. And in one particular group, it was the other direction. So that's something we have to dive into as a district. It's probably a group that has about 22 kids in it. So I don't want to jump too much into it because you can start identifying who those kids might be and so forth. But it's something that we look at behind the scenes now that we have this data in front of us. They also look at graduation rate. That's really never been an issue for us, but it's never 100%. We'll get to more of that later. And then how our English language learners did. So that's been the core of gap closing for years. What hasn't been always on here, they didn't really know where to put these two things, so they threw it in gap closing, is what's our chronic absenteeism rate and how do our gifted students do. So those are kind of two extra pieces in there. Our chronic absenteeism rate was 10.6%. We're less than their threshold of 16%, so we get the point for that. And then our gifted students, they look at their performance index scores just for the gifted students, their growth, and how we serve them, and we got all the points in those particular areas. So you add all this together and all these data points on here, we were 56 out of 63 points, and that's how you end up with this percentage. And as long as you're over 60%, you are a 5-star in gap closing. So this is almost a carbon copy of what we did last year. The only difference is last year we grew better in math than we did with ELA. And sometimes that's typical. One year you grow well in one subject, it's harder to grow that same amount the next year.
The absenteeism thing, is that the last 5 years that's really trended differently than historically? And how does that move?
Post-COVID. So that number is a little bit higher than it was the previous year, but it's way better than it was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So we were closer to 15% a couple of years ago. We've been right around that 10, 11% the last 2 years.
And nationally, this has been a thing,
It's
right?
a big, it changes. This is
Very
one of the things that I think as, for our front office staff that has to work with this and the principals and the letters and keeping track of things, that it's ever changing every time a budget bill comes out from the Ohio legislator.
Yeah.
So it's hard to keep on top of. Sometimes the standards are relaxed and sometimes they become more stringent and sometimes they directly conflict with each other. Make sure I didn't skip one there. The next piece of this is early literacy. So this combines three things: your proficiency on the 3rd grade test, how many students you move from on track to off track in their diagnostics in kindergarten, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd grade, and also how many students get promoted to 4th grade at the end of that time. Each of these are weighted differently. You see the weights are 40, 35, and 25 going down that list. And we are a 4-star this area with 78.8% of students making that benchmark. So we made the shift to Wit and Wisdom last year. That's going to continue into this year. I would say that it was more difficult with 3rd grade than it was 4th, 5th, and 6th grade in terms of implementation. So, but again, we're still a 4-star here, which is a good place to be. Certainly would like that to be improved in the future, but I think that's one that we're going to keep our eye on for sure. The diagnostics that tell if a student is off track or on track have really changed. We used to have like 4% of our students that took the KRA would be off track, and a couple of years ago they redid the KR test. We had 40% of our kindergartners off track. Now mind you, that test is given the first week of school, so there's no instruction this is just what they're walking in. And it's not that our students aren't prepared, it's just the standard for that particular test is much, much higher than it used to be. There are still school districts that report less than 10% of their students are off track from the KRA, and I really would love to see that data, but that's kind of where we are. So for us to have that high off track percentage and get that many students back on track that's a real positive. A lot of work during the school year and a lot of work during the summer too with parents and their children and their families and the teachers involved as well.
And we don't get any extra money if we have kids that are off track and we need to bring them back up.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't get any Title I money at all anymore. That's a totally monetary metric, and we do not get those funds anymore. Our graduation rate, again, it's never 100%. We have students that are allowed to go to school beyond their graduation rate with their plans that they have in place. And there's some great success stories for that. But even though they finished all the graduation requirements and they don't have to take any more tests and they walk across the stage, they are not officially called a graduate until we exit them from our system. I know I've been sarcastic with that in the past, and I will refrain from that today. I just don't understand it. So, so that's why you don't see 100% there in those particular cases, and we're happy to serve those kids, and there's some real great success stories from that Mrs. Spence can fill you in on someday. And then finally, we're still a 5-star, by the way, for graduation. Finally is this college career readiness and college career workforce and military readiness measure. So there's all these different measures that they look at your senior class. This is always going to be 2 years in arrears. So this is actually class of 2024 data that you're looking at up here. And for these students, what they do is they say, okay, you had 199 students in that class. How many of them checked one of these boxes? They were remediation free on the ACT or SAT. They got a 3 or better on 3 AP tests. They took 12 CCP credits while they were in high school, or they earned 12 CCP credits in high school. They have industry credentials that are totaling 12 points. They did a pre-apprenticeship, or they got an apprenticeship. They joined the military, among other things. Those are the big ones that we have that our students would fulfill. They got an honors diploma. I can't believe I forgot that one. And the honors diploma is not what the honors diploma used to be. It's much more difficult to get an honors diploma than it was 4 or 5 years ago, because there's an internship project-based component to that wasn't there before. So these are the different numbers of students that got those. In the end, 154 of our almost 200 graduates in that particular year checked one of those boxes. When we first got this data for the first year that they just gave us a reporting data, we were 62%. So we upticked 15%. We've also added a ton of CCP, which this isn't the reason we added CCP at the high school. That just gives kids a competitive advantage and helps families pay for college. But at the same time, it does benefit this piece of it as well. So, you know, if we can both benefit from that, from a report card and a student experience and monetary perspective, that's a good thing. So we anticipate this to go up a little bit to get to 85%, which is the cutoff for a 5-star, is going to be a challenge. It's a challenge the high school is readily accepting, but it's going to be difficult, because how do you look at a student and say, we really want you to take another CCP course, and they've lined up this great experience where they're getting an internship and real world experience that you can't put a price tag on this. So that's the difficulty with this, but a lot of students are really benefiting from some of the things that we have in place. We've added work-based learning. Scott and Katie at the high school, along with the counseling staff there, have done a great job of giving students experiences outside of the building. Instead of putting them in elective courses that they don't want to take, putting them in work-based learning situations where they can learn about a potential career, or learn just good work habits sometimes, and the ability to work with other people and so forth in a non-school setting. Those are wonderful traits to have and fill a lot of fortunate graduate competencies that we have in place.
I would also say that not one Alliance school district is 5-star on that measure, not one. So we're actually talking with Chris Bullard from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce next week, just to kind of run through some of the scenarios, because that doesn't make any sense. And there's, I think, only 10 school districts in the state that made 5-star.
Oh, for this measure?
Yeah.
Although there were quite a few.
There were?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But they're places where students are forced to take classes to get industry credentials.
Okay.
So if it's important to us and we want to do that, could we do that with our student population? Absolutely. They knock the doors off those tests and they don't get them. Is that the best thing for kids? Absolutely not. Let them choose their own pathway within all the options up there, and we can get most of them there. But it is going to be a challenge to get to 85%. So at the end of the day, we're a 5-star. The one nice thing this year is there's a monetary component attached to this. We are going to get, this is Mrs. Pulley's number, so this is wrong. Because we're a 5-star district, we should get $157,412 from the state as a bonus for being a high-performing school. That's never happened before, and thank you very much. We will put it to good use.
which helps because we eliminated Title I funding. and
Yeah, well, it just replaces that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? That was a little longer than I intended to be, so I apologize for that.
That's great, appreciate the update.
That's one of my favorite updates of the entire year,
Yeah.
not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Is it because I give it, or is it because of the data?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, thanks,
Okay.
Ryan.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Ryan. All right, next we're gonna have our monthly financial and financial forecast presented by.
Another one of my favorite parts.
Yeah.
Everyone's, I'm sure.
That's the right one, correct?
Okay.
Cash balance comparison, throughout this entire year, you're gonna see this drop. It's because, again, of that $1 million transfer that we made in June. So for the entire year, until we get back to June where we actually made the transfer, it's gonna look like we have a lot less money than we did previously, but that's not the case. It's only because of that transfer.
And just a reminder, that transfer was made because of the cash balance conversation that was happening at the state level, which could be changed at any point within this general session. So it's important to keep that money in that capital projects fund. Yeah.
August revenue, this is just August compared to August of last year. The property taxes are down. If you recall, in July, they were up, and that's mostly a timing issue. You'll see in a second that there's a little more to it than that, but the month over month is just because of the timing. We got more in July and less in August. And in the all other revenue, we get a payment in lieu of taxes from the city of Newark for the River Road Apartments. Normally we get that in September. This year we happen to get it in August, so that was a pretty significant increase month over month. Year to date, we're ahead about $186,000. The taxes, if you recall in July, the income taxes were up. That is offsetting the decrease that we received in property taxes. The decrease in the property taxes, according to the county auditor, we had a public utility that appealed its valuation at some point in the last few years. Apparently, the state board of tax appeals did agree with them for that appeal, and so there was a $200,000 refund to that entity. That should not, that hopefully will be a one-time thing. That's not going to be forever being flat or a decrease, a slight decrease, but that was just a one-off thing. And unfortunately, if we have those, they're hard to predict and they're hard to report on.
It's a retroactive refund though, not just a going forward thing? Wow.
Remember they filed the appeal, it takes that long to get through the process.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Our August expenditures compared to August of last year, again, if you'll recall in July, our expenditures were significantly higher because we paid new custodial company in July where we did not pay them in July of last year. We paid 2 payments in August. This year we only paid 1 in August, therefore our expenses were down. Year over year, it's about $311,000 higher, primarily due to the increase in salary, base and steps, and also our purchase services continue to increase due to the cost of special education contracted services and also just the custodial, inflationary, all of those types of things. This is the cash flow projection compared to the forecast projection. Total revenue is about $300,000 trending ahead. And total expenses are about, my numbers are small on here. No, thank you, $300,000 less. Combined, we're running ahead of the forecast right now at $845,000. That could just be timing. We'll have to wait and see how that plays out, but it's still better to be ahead now than behind. Capital Projects Fund, we have almost paid for everything related to the burner replacement and the air handlers. Both of those probably will be paid within the next month or so, finalized. And we're still sitting with about 7.2 million in capital project budget, capital project funds. That's remaining from the transfer that we did. And then last is the cash reconciliation for the month of August. There is nothing unusual on it. Total cash within the district, not just the general fund, but all funds, is about $51.1 million. Any questions on the monthly? Great.
Now, the financial forecast. And you may be saying, why now? Well, you can thank the General Assembly. Go ahead, you can explain.
Going forward, it will be due in August and February as opposed to October, November, and May. This year, since the first year implementing it, they did give us until October 15th to do it. However, our October board meeting is after that date, so we have to do it at this meeting. One of the biggest changes that they made also is it's no longer a 5-year forecast, it's now a current year plus 3 forecast. So we are still presenting a 5-year forecast because we believe that's in the best interest of the information for the district. But when we submit to the state, we will only be submitting current plus 3.
Why did they change it? Do we know why?
Supposedly, that 5th year is so far out in the future anyway, it's not providing a lot of the data that it's not the data that actually they're seeking. And the state auditor particularly believes that the first 3 years is where you can see a lot of financial distress in districts. So they really want to focus more on that.
But for our purposes, the long-term planning, levies and things like that is so important to see those trends,
Yes.
right? To see how they're going to adjust it. I appreciate you putting the extra effort in extending the timing of it.
Well, and if you recall, we actually have gone out as far as trying to project 10 years.
Yeah.
At times, just because I think that's solid financial plan. So-
It's always going to change. Forecasts are always going to change and things like that. But if it helps you time levies and think about when capital levies change and when operating levies might be required and how to balance, income and revenue, that's really important.
So one of the things I do want to point out is since we just did this in May, we did not change much. Really all we have done is update for the income tax that we already know about from this year. We updated based on the budget for our state funding, and we just kind of projected everything into the new year that we already talked about for the 4th year. We're going on the slow growth model in the forecast, so we're not forecasting the rapid growth. We also updated, we've got new insurance rates for calendar year 26 and a cap for 2027, so we did update based on that. And we did change slightly the capital project transfers that we're going to do going forward. As I said, this is no longer required to be a current plus 3, but we're going to continue to do 5. And any changes to property tax revenue or state funding would have a material impact on the financial position of the district. And there is discussion of veto override, as I'm sure you've heard, so we're still going based on what's current law, but if they do anything at the state level, obviously that will change. The most important one, and we're going to circle back to this one at the end, so I'm not going to spend too much time on it at the moment, but this is where our cash balance is headed over the next 5 years. So part of the reason you see such a decrease is because we do have to project without renewals. So we will be negative in the 5th year anyway, even with the renewal, but it is not as substantial as that. The purple line does show the with the renewals. So it is negative, but not nearly as much.
Which, there is a levy cycle. We are still 55% of our revenue for property tax, and property tax gets rolled back with valuations. So it's designed to, go up and then down depending on a cycle. We've elongated that cycle because of the income tax by design by the board. So the last time we've requested new money was well back in 2018. And that revenue should sustain us through almost 2028, which at that time we said might be a 10-year
window before we ask for new money. But ultimately, if we're continuing to rely on a property tax environment, that is going to naturally create those curves where we have to go back to the voters for additional support. Just reminding everybody.
What's too much for the veto override? And then things that are
So,
financial rule?
Do you want
still
to,
there?
okay. Somehow I live this every day. A lot of the types of levies that are, that contribute to the 20 mil floor, so like emergency and substitute levies, they're potentially taking those away, that impact the 20 mil floor.
That don't currently impact us.
Correct. Some of the other provisions are the 40% cap, or the 40%, yeah,
that is, yeah.
yeah. And then.
That shouldn't affect us either, because
That
that would find it
we've-
either case or whatever.
Correct.
Manage that.
Yes. So, and then, what was the other property? Yeah, the homestead rollback and, yeah, some of those provisions.
That would
So
have a little
what
impact.
happened in the final version of the budget is the governor put together a property tax task force. And they are, I think they actually are putting together recommendations as of today. So I think there's going to be a report out as to what the taxation system changes should be for property tax. But remember, everything is built off of House Bill 920 that was passed in the 70s. And so that created the 20 mil floor, and it also created this rollback. So it's a pretty complicated system, and when you make one tweak in one area, it has a ripple effect on all the other areas. So, and according to this, even though they supported the Fair School funding formula, they didn't update the inputs. So if you don't update the inputs are based on 2021. It's 2025 now. So if you don't update the inputs, then the formula doesn't work as designed. So they're going to pay less of the burden for educating the students in Granville schools. They already pay a minimum amount as it is. So that was my soapbox. I apologize.
Now, those are good reminders, because there's a lot of things in the news and conversations about property tax and how those happen and so forth. Right? I guess my sense, and I have not up to speed recently in the state legislator's perspective, is a lot of it's driven by this 20 mil forward
Yes.
inflationary increases, which don't apply to us.
Correct.
Right? And I think our voted millage here, which we've come to rely on and will continue to with this levy cycle, will sort of have to be a part of the system in some way. So I'm hopeful for the moment. Or too much of a wrench into that, but certainly because we're heavily reliant on property tax, and there's a lot of conversations about that, there will be impacts that might accelerate when we need to, look for incremental property tax knowledge.
And that's
That are really driven by the legislation.
Yeah, that's the disclaimer.
Yeah.
This is a very short summary of the forecast, the beginning cash balance plus total revenue. You can see the line in years 29 and 30 for those renewal levies. That's when the income tax would start to phase out if it's not renewed, and the dollar impact that would have. Ending cash balance with the levies in 2030 is the first year that we would go negative, and that's based on current information. Theoretically, by 2030, if nothing changes, we may be able to make changes that would make that number less. But 2027 is the last year that we are within our cash balance policy. 2028, we still have positive cash balance. 2029, we still have positive cash balance, but we are below the 90 days at that point. And then the bottom number there is the cash balances if we did not have the levies renewed.
And that cash balance policy is really just a trigger for the board to have conversations about additional.
Here is actually the basic cash on hand. 2027, we have 91 days, our minimum is 90. 2028, we're down to 62, and 2029, we're at 27. And the blue is based on the May forecast, how many days we had, so we've actually, there's not much change. Total revenue overview. not that drastic of a change anywhere. The orange is the income tax again. We are not forecasting the huge property tax valuation changes. We don't believe that 30% is sustainable over time. So we've dropped that down to about 7%, which we do think is more reasonable. And those are two property tax, one reevaluation and one assessment in this forecast. And here actually is the property tax revenue, 7.25% that we're forecasting in the 26 update, and 7.5 in the 29 reappraisal. The two years that are highlighted in red, those are the appraisal years, in the update years. And you can see the change in the millage in the middle column there. That is projected, so in the 26 update, we are anticipating to lose about 1.5 mils. And in the 2029 reappraisal, approximately another 1.5 mils. Neither of those get us to the 20 mil floor. Assuming nothing changes, 2032 could be a possibility, but that would be the earliest that we think that would happen at this time.
Something else is gonna change by then.
Exactly.
And again, that is a function of House Bill 920. As values go up, rates are dropped to keep the amount of money that we collect the same.
Different send millage, which is
Except for
10%
incentive.
of our revenue. Correct. That's cool.
The income tax revenue, we are projecting a 5% increase over the 5 years. That's pretty consistent historically. What we've seen, the payments with returns, estimated payments, that's people actually filing their taxes and paying. We're projecting that at a 1.5% increase. That's much less predictable. We don't know if people are having money withheld, if they are moving in and out of the district. So 1.5 tends to be a good indicator for us. And again, the orange is the value of the replacement. This has not changed since the spring. This is still the most recent data available. It's just the total taxable income for our school district. And you can see that it is not consistent. There was a pretty big jump in 2020 and 2021, but then a decrease in 2022. But we have not seen the 2023 data yet.
That's the latest data we can get.
Yeah. Yeah. Unrestricted state funding, this is based on the budget updates. The pie chart there at the top, the orange is the local per pupil funding that we do, and this blue is the state share. The state's share was 87% in fiscal '25, and that has increased, or sorry, the local share was 87% in 2025 and has increased to 90%. So even though we did get some more state funding, it's still a lower percentage of our total to educate students. Total expenditures, the 2025 looks like an outlier. That does include the transfer. If you take that out, it's a much more gradual increase over time. Historically, year over year, 6.75, also again including the transfer. We're projecting about a little less than 3% based on inflationary, based on negotiated agreements and those types of things. Our enrollment, again, we're projecting in the forecast this lower growth. So we're showing increasing, but not nearly as fast as if something happens right away. The one on the right is our expenditure per pupil. The orange line is based on our 2021 number and what our expenditure per pupil would be if we just increased it by inflation. You can see we're running slightly under that, but not really. Inflationary growth is most of our spend.
And that's been the historical truth for the last 30 years, so that's like a pretty good metric. As it sort of should be.
Salaries in this update, the only thing that has changed is we continue to project a few additional teachers in FY30, but everything else is the same from the May forecast. We did not add any new staff in 26. we are projecting 2 in 27 and then 3 each year following.
And remember, if the enrollment isn't there, we don't add the teachers. So this, again, it's a 5-year forecast, it's not a spending plan. So
Which I
that's
believe
what we do with our annual budget.
At some point did project to add staff
Yeah.
in 26, but we did not need it, so we did not.
Correct.
And the administrative support as well, when you start getting
Correct.
equipment and things like that, that's when those comes.
Yep.
Benefits, again, based on what we received from Medical Mutual, we're showing a 9.9% increase in calendar year 26. And then they did give us a 15% rate cap for 2027, but we hope to come in a little less than that, so we're projecting 12.5, and then we're projecting 10% the remaining years. The increase is also could be due to our increase in, potentially in staff numbers. Purchase services, this one's a little hard to read, but the biggest spends that we have in purchase services are our custodial contract, our utilities, and special education services. And we're projecting a 5% increase for the custodial and utilities throughout the forecast, and a 2.5% for the special education. Other financing uses, since we made that large transfer in 2025, we're projecting that we probably do not need to make another transfer. If you kind of even it out over the time, it's about a $2 million per year transfer. So we're projecting that we don't need to do that again until 2030 now. If that changes, obviously, if we spend that down faster, but right now we don't think that's going to be the case. And again, back to this one, we believe we'll have a sufficient cash balance through 2027, but might need to consider discussing financing options at that time, levies or whatnot. And again, any changes at the state level would obviously change this forecast. So, any questions?
So from a levy timing perspective, the anticipated next thing is the renewal of the income tax, which will go on the ballot next fall. Or
27.
27,
Yeah.
right? And then an incremental property tax to meet the cyclical nature.
Yes.
And then a lot of other factors just after that.
Yes. That would be the best prediction. There's a lot of things that can change in this forecast that we can manage around. Again, you know, that $3 million deficit could be erased with a really good year in insurance. You know, so
Yeah.
little things like that can adjust the forecast. And again, if we don't add staff, and they're built in, that will, again, decrease that, that overall expenditure deficit. So a lot of this can be managed around, but we are at the tail end of that cycle. So we'll be stretching versus, you know, ultimately we will need to increase revenue at some point.
Great. Nice job, thanks.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. We're at the point of the meeting for public comments. If anyone would like to address the board, please step up to the podium, state your name and address. Okay, seeing none, more discussion? Okay.
I would just kick off the board discussion with, you know, a compliment to the teaching staff and the support staff for all the work that they do around the local report card. You know, the Granville schools have always taken the approach of the report card should be interesting validation of information that we already know. And that continues to be the case. A lot of times, our internal measures are much more strict than what the state holds us accountable to. But we do look at that data. Our mission is learning for life, not for the state test. So we want kids to have that balance, that whole child education that we think is significantly valuable for them when they leave us. I'd also like to compliment the maintenance and staff in operations for all the work that they did this summer. It's not easy in this environment. One, procurement's difficult,
costs escalate, people don't show up to get work done, so it's a constant pressure cooker for the people in charge of getting those projects done, especially because I like to say I want them on time and under budget. So that's always a challenge. So kudos to the entire staff for the work that they've done, and we appreciate all that effort.
Yeah, I agree completely in the report card. It's great validation of kind of like what we already know and feel. But there's so many other things that are happening that are really a focus for us on Portrait of Graduate qualities and so forth. Are there other metrics that the board should establish around some of these other factors, although they might be, not as standardized or not as, should there be a, percent participation in extracurriculars? Or, I don't know what those other metrics are, or how we judge how we're doing on the Portrait of Graduate
So-
qualities. But it'd be interesting to see,
Yeah.
at the same time, some kind of review of that.
If you look at our district mailer, that actually highlights a lot of the things that you're referencing.
Yeah.
We try and, put the fiscal aspect in there. We try and put all the blend of the academics, the athletics, and the arts, and talk about all the achievements of our students across multiple measures. In the June edition, you see all the accomplishments of the graduating class. So we try and use that almost as a quality profile
Yeah.
of other metrics that we look at. But we also do things where we look at some qualitative and quantitative research around surveying our students, around how they feel about certain topics, and if we're meeting their needs. Is it a rigorous environment? Are we giving them enough latitude or autonomy to stretch themselves? So Dr. Nicholson, who you've heard me talk about through SDL, does some survey data. We'll probably resurface that data again in 2026. So those are some of the internal measures that we look at on a regular basis to see if we're moving the needle in the right direction.
Yeah, I think those are great, important metrics, as much so as the report card, but we don't maybe take the time to celebrate them as much in this format and so forth, but I agree we do a nice job with the mailers and stuff like that, but those are as important as this. We shouldn't take this for granted. There's a lot of hard work that comes into these results, but there's a lot of other stuff.
Yeah, I'll add two things for the facility updates. I think Mr. Lockton closing off the pathway between Mr. DeVol's parking spot and his office was a great idea for traffic flow. So that's been noticed as, by at least my students, for improved safety feeling when exiting and entering the building. So thank you for that one as well. So we'll add that one on. I think with the increases in SDL and PBIS is just, let's lean more in on Portrait of a Graduate here. These results, again, validate, I think, what we're doing as a school district. So we don't teach to test, but our past years of this cohort has definitely shown that this Portrait of a Graduate needs to be leaned in, I think, even more.
Yeah. And remember, a lot of this is based off of Gallup's research that says if a kid is involved in a significant project over a length of time that is significant, they have a higher likelihood of completing college more than a high ACT score. So think about that. And that makes sense if you think about the world of work. It's all project-based. That's what we do. So there is a methodology behind what we're trying to accomplish and what we're trying to arm students with as they leave us. So I think that's a really good point. We need to continue to move towards that.
And compliments to the instructional coaches, our teachers, Granville Education Association. I think there's a lot that they do every day to show this work. And to be honest with you, I think our parents ourselves. So parents in the district go hand in hand with Portrait of a Graduate and complement that full cycle.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Can we move it on? Can we talk about the Granville Education Foundation event last night?
Sure.
Oh,
It
absolutely.
was so fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. It was so amazing to see the students just show so much pride, wearing all their gear. And then, once again, I think someone highlighted this last year, but to see the big kids, you know, the high schooler students kind of helping out the younger kids. Mr. Costa was there, Officer Costa, like, they're just, it felt like a wonderful community event. And there was an amazing fire.
And kudos to the fire department.
Yeah.
Who
It was
controlled
really
the burn in a very dry environment.
Yep. And made it look cool too. Like,
Yeah.
there was a little element of danger, which is
So now we
nice to
need
have.
to monitor the growth of new grass in that area to see how, there's a science project there, in there somewhere. So, no, it was great.
Attention, Mr. Reddy.
Yeah.
Yes, I'd just like to echo thanks to the Granville Education Foundation for reviving the whole idea of the homecoming parade and the kickoff to the week of homecoming. So thanks to all those involved.
Can we do just a quick plug as to what the Granville Education Foundation does, so that way?
Take it away.
I don't know if I'm the best person to do this, but just the idea that they support, they support projects that supplement the curriculum, new ideas that teachers have, sometimes that students have. Is that
Yes.
enough?
Yeah.
Okay.
And they have a significant budget that's entirely supported by local community member charitable contributions that are important to keep in mind, and thanks to all of the members that have stepped up and contributed there. So,
And I believe their grant cycle is open right now for teachers.
through the end of this month.
Through the end of this month. Thank you.
And I'd just like to add, the Granville Sports Hall of Fame inductions are this coming Saturday, the 20th, at Cherry Valley Hotel.
Correct.
I think at 7 p.m. Action agenda?
Okay.
Unless anyone has anything else.
Excellent, thank you. All right, so action agenda, item 6.01 is the approval of the BCAC annual plan.
So moved. Second.
The BCAC plan is the Business and Community Advisory Committee. We partner with the Licking Regional ESC to provide that service. Beth Bronker facilitates that, but it's a collaborative with the businesses around Licking County to really help prepare students to prepare for the workforce.
Do we have local representatives, or are you a representative on that?
Ryan and I are both representatives, thank you. This year, this past year, I presented the portrait of a graduate to the rest of the committee, and which is referenced in that plan. They want to do that again this year as
It was
well.
nice to see that in there.
Yeah.
And so forth. Is it going to get some traction around it?
I think
So
so.
forth, you think?
I think so. It's pretty convincing.
Well, it's a great plan, it's a great program, so thank you.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds? Aye. Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
All right. 6.02 is the approval of the resolution to once again approve the special education model policies and procedures.
So moved.
Second?
It's like rinse and repeat. A lot of things change in the budget cycle, including some of the language that they want included in the model policies and procedures. So we're just keeping it updated.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
And I will say Gwen does a
I was
fantastic
just
job
saying.
of keeping on track of all those changes, so thank you. 6.03, the approval of the ESCCO contracted service agreement for ELL learners.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, we receive a very small federal amount, I think it's $3,000, and we give that to the ESCCO so that we can get access to their professional development and support services.
But we don't outsource much of the actual
No, we-
instructional work and things like that, that's all internal.
Correct. Yep.
Great.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Deeds? Aye. Mr. Khan?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Okay, next is the consent agenda. Consent agenda is 7.01 through 7.13. No, I lied. 1.4.
So moved. Second.
I will call your attention to the 4 lunch monitors for GES and GIS that are now working during the lunch periods, which is fantastic for us. They are parents, but also have gone through all the background checks and are employees at this point. I will also call your attention to all the supplementals. Typically, this is when we start to hire winter and spring supplementals. So we have that list. We have a couple of new hires. We have an educational aide, we have a new bus driver, which is great because we always need bus drivers. And then we have a new computer technician that is going to be joining our technology staff as we go through that revamping process. We're very excited that Erin is joining our district, and Erin happens to be the spouse of Mrs. Dixon, who is at the intermediate school, so that's good, keeping it in the family. We always appreciate all of the volunteers, and then we have one recognition of a retirement. Mrs. Mosquera is leaving at the end of this year, and so obviously we'll celebrate her tenure in Granville Schools, but she's been here for almost 27 years, which is a fantastic accomplishment. And we also have the Washington DC trip, 8th grade trip, that we will approve. And yeah, so just some of the general items. Any questions about the consent agenda? Okay.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Ms. Dietz? Aye. Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Okay, I'm going to keep rolling right into the financials. 8.01 is the then and now resolutions.
So moved.
Second?
And so these are 2 items that, one is coming from the playground. We had to get additional dumpsters because we actually had a lot more rubber than we thought we did out there. It was almost 2 feet deep. So, yeah, and then obviously some parts from the trucking center.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Dietz? Aye. Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
8.02 is the approval of the permanent appropriation resolution.
So moved. Second.
This is the time of year where we have to do our permanent appropriation. Again, we usually have to come back at some point in time to adjust this based on some of the federal dollar allocations, but you know, at least we have a permanent appropriation for the rest of the year.
Take the roll, please.
Ms. Dietz? Aye. Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Thank you. Last is the approval of 8.03 is the approval of the financial forecast.
So moved.
Second.
And kudos to Kim
Yeah,
for
very nice.
jumping in and
Very nice.
doing a great job of articulating our financial forecast that has adjusted with the new requirements.
Yeah. What we expect from an internationally award-winning treasury department.
That's right.
Thank you.
And I believe we just got a notification that our 2024 will also be award-winning. So.
Internationally.
Hey.
Who needs rating?
We'll make sure that we audit. That's right.
Take the roll, please.
Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Ms. Dietz? Aye. Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
Thank you.
We're going to enter into executive session to consider the employment of a public employee or official, and there will not be any action taken following executive session.
Second. Sorry.
Ms. Dietz? Aye. Ms. Shaw? Aye. Mr. Crum?
Aye.
Mr. Miller?
Aye.
Mr. Wolf?
Aye.
All right.
Thank you.